Welcome to Porch on the Prairie. I'm Megan and I live on a homestead in rural Minnesota with my husband and 4 small children. Today, I'll show you how to make a super simple mozzarella cheese with raw milk, as well as delicious string cheese. Mozzarella is the first cheese I had ever made when I started with raw milk a few years ago, and I highly recommend it as a beginner cheese. I always used to make it using just raw milk and vinegar, which was awesome because I had those ingredients on hand. This recipe is on my blog at porchontheprairie.com, which I will link in the description. However, today's recipe is actually from Robin Jackson's cookbook, Cheese from Scratch, and it is super simple to follow. Robin is such a wealth of knowledge when it comes to cheese making, and if you don't already follow her, you need to check her out. As you get into cheese making, you'll find there's multiple methods for cheese making, but for beginners, I highly recommend starting simple. Step 1 is to pour 2 gallons of raw milk into a large pot, and you'll want to be sure that all equipment and surfaces have been thoroughly cleaned. Next, dissolve 2.5 teaspoons of citric acid in a 1/4 cup of cool water. I'm using fine-grained citric acid, so it takes a little stirring and time for it to actually dissolve, but powder probably works best. Add this into the milk and combine with an up and down stirring motion. Now you'll want to warm the milk to 90 degrees Fahrenheit or 32 degrees Celsius. A little tip is that you must add the citric acid before heating it, or you risk making ricotta instead of mozzarella. Always be sure to rinse your milk jars with warm water right away to avoid milkstone buildup on the jars. Milkstone can be a breeding ground for bacteria, and it is what makes the jars look sort of foggy. While the milk is heating, dilute 1/2 teaspoon of rennet into 1/4 cup of lukewarm water. I like to get all of my cheesemaking supplies from the New England Cheesemaking Supply Company, and I will link that in the description below as well. So once the milk has reached 90 degrees Fahrenheit, incorporate the rennet into the milk with a gentle up and down stirring motion. Cover the pot and let it ripen for 1 hour. I usually set a timer on my watch for this, and then I take off to do other things and come back to check at that 1 hour mark. At the hour mark, check for a clean break. To do this, carefully stick the blade 1 inch under the surface of your milk and lift slightly. A smooth-edged crack should form on the surface of the milk. It shouldn't be jagged. If you don't have that clean break, put the lid on the pot and leave it for another 10 minutes or so. Do this until you do achieve that clean break. Once you've achieved a clean break, cut the curds into 1-inch cubes using a long-bladed knife. You'll want to cut a grid of vertical and horizontal lines about 1 inch apart. Make sure that you extend to the base of the cheese pot to create that checkerboard pattern. Allow the curds to rest for 5 minutes to firm up some, and then cut underneath the curd mass with a skimmer to turn these pillars into cubes. Allow the curds to rest for another 5 minutes or so to firm up a little bit more. Gently stir the curds for 10 minutes. Check the temperature of your whey to ensure it's still at 90 degrees Fahrenheit. If your whey has become cold, warm it back up to 90 degrees while you stir. Let the curds sit for 5 minutes more until they have sunk to the bottom of the pot, and in the meantime, boil a kettle of water. Next, you'll complete what's called the stretch test. To do this, pour boiling water into a coffee mug, or, as I'm doing here, into a measuring glass. Drop a few curds into the hot boiling water and let them sit for about a half minute. Next, start to lift the curd up and down in the water with a fork, and if the curd stretches into a beautiful melty cheese and does not break off, then you know your cheese is ready to go on to the next step. If the curds do not stretch, or if the stretch breaks off, Let your curds sit for another 10 minutes under the whey before repeating this step with some new curds. Once your cheese has passed the stretch test, drain your curds from the whey through a whey moistened cloth-lined colander. So you'll see I dip the cheesecloth into the whey just to dampen it, and then I line my colander with the whey moistened cloth. The whey strained from the curd has many uses. However, after last week's mishap with the whey all over the place, I just really wasn't in the mood to deal with that today, so I am just dumping it down the drain. You'll want a kettle of boiling water, and you'll also need to prepare a bowl of ice water. Once the curd is drained, return your cheese curd to the cheese pot and break it apart into 1-inch pieces with your hands. Pour the kettle of boiling water over your curds, and then, using a wooden spoon, slowly start to knead the cheese under the hot water. This will be very hot, obviously, as you've just poured boiling water over the curd. As soon as the cheese begins to stretch, begin pulling the cheese into a long rope. Now here it's actually not stretching like I need it to, so I'm going to heat up another kettle of boiling water and add that, and that should get it to the consistency that I need it. This is string cheese. You can break the string apart as you go, or roll these ropes into a ball, kind of like a ball of yarn, to keep them long. You'll want to transfer them to the ice water to hold their shape. You don't want to let the mozzarella soak in the ice water for too long, or it will become slimy. So just keep an eye on it as you work. If you watch closely, you will see that I will swirl the curd mass in the whey to kind of get a little more stretch going in there. I will also add that sanitized kitchen scissors would probably work really well for cutting apart the string cheese, but clearly that's not something I'm doing here today. I also like to do a ball of mozzarella for shredding, for pizza, lasagna, anything like that. So I'll stretch and fold the curd to form the ball. The final step is to salt the cheese, and today I simply sprinkled some salt on the surface. The cheese is now ready to enjoy. You can eat it right away, or it will store well in the fridge for about a week or so. I do often like to freeze the cheese as well and pull it out when I'm ready to use it. Let me know what you think of this recipe in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe to see what else we're up to on the homestead in the coming weeks. We'll be bringing more of our honeybees to the homestead, as well as some baby chicks. Also, I'm hoping that the rhubarb will be ready to do some strawberry rhubarb jam. As always, thanks for being here.